Okay, this is another couple of images that have come through. Out of the two of them, this one I like a wee bit more. It's got this kind of monochromatic quality down here, and then it goes through, and you can kind of see the normal colors of the image bleeding through here. I really love the fine lines of the running track going through the top. Overall, this has more of a graphic feel. This one feels a little bit more photographic. So we're going to see if we can tie them in a wee bit more. One of the things I know Perry talked about was making this red a little less harsh through the middle. So we'll look at that. The scales were out a wee bit, so these have been modified and stretched and messed around with. So they're both A4 at 200 ppi. So I'll have a look at this image first. So with this one, I really like the AD 1900, so I'm going to leave that at the top. I'm just going to pull this down a bit so it meets the edge. And to try and make this blue a little more graphic, what I'm going to do is find which image it is. Okay, this one here. And it overlays a wee bit, so what I'll do is I'll make a new layer. I'm just going to get the eyedropper tool, so I for the eyedropper tool, and select a blue, option delete to fill with the foreground color, and I'll just switch that off for a second. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get where this edge is. I kind of like the harsh edge, so I'm going to get that, select it, and then on my blue layer I'm going to hit the mask. So I've got that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to check some of these options as a overlay. See if I can get something that is starting to work. Overlays, quite nice. I like that one. I like hard light, so that it's starting to tie it in with the green a little bit more. So what I can do is I can pick one that has a little bit of an effect. So let's try this one. We'll try soft light. And what I can do is if I duplicate it, you strengthen that result. So if I come through here, I can duplicate it a couple of times. I can even go to one of these soft light ones and I can dilute the opacity down so that I can get exactly what I want. And I'm trying to get something that's more monochromatic, maybe letting a little bit of color through, but not too much. Now, this, if I put it right up the top, so we've got that harsh red. So this is what Perry was looking at getting rid of. The easiest way with this is I can see that it kind of goes over the trees, and the trees have quite a bit of black in them. So if I double click on this, on the red, I can say, and this is saying, okay, the image underneath, let the darkest areas come through first. And so you can see the trees eating through into that image. It's quite a hard pixelated look if I look around here. So if I hold down the option key, I can split it and I can soften it somewhat. Really, I'm just focusing on this area down the bottom here, trying to bring something through with that. I can go OK, because what I can do as well is I can duplicate this image. I can use the same, actually I can just use this mask, hold down the option key, and I can drag that up. So just have a look with this, Command I, you can see it's kind of swapping it around. So with this one, I'll take that layer mask completely off, and if I hold down the option, drag it on there, and I'll just go Command I. So this one that has the layer mask on is focused on this bottom part of the image, and the top has been left alone. If I want, I can go into the top, And I can do the same thing, but to a lesser level. Or I can say, okay, I want the lights to come through. What does that look like? And it gets rid of the AD up the top, which I quite like. There's no point in doing it to the top layer because the top layer is just red. So it's either going to be all on and then kind of all off, whichever slider I use, because it's just a solid color. So it's the bottom one that I want to work with. And I might just bring it in a little bit. I can split it again. And then you've also got the transparency if you want to play around with that. So I'll go okay. So I've got these two different qualities on this one thing. The blue, now that it's got that overlay, I'll chuck another one in, just strengthens that blue a little bit more. Now I'm going to look at the green and see what I can do here. So I'm going to, and again I can just use that same mask option because it's just a straight split. I can bring it down here, go Command I, so it's just working on that green. And with this one I'm going to go and add in hue and saturation, see what I can do that way. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to close it and I'm going to clip it by holding down the option key so that it's just working with that, and then I can come in and say okay, colorize, bring it back to a green. The saturation I can boost up. The darkness of that green I can kind of mess around with a wee bit as well. So I'm going to boost the saturation up quite a bit. Look at that green, whether I wanted a bit more aqua or a bit more solid green. I'm going to try and get a bit more of a solid green. I'm kind of looking at the other image, trying to get some sort of tie-in. Now I can also add a mask onto that. So I've actually got a mask already with that green, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, Command +ing, just to enlarge it up, and I'm going to draw a square over top of that door. We know that black blocks, so if I go Option Delete, which is fill with the foreground color, which is black, it's going to block that hue and saturation, and it's going to bring the normal color through on that that door. So now if I have a look at these two images side by side, there's an interesting dynamic where they're both starting to look a little more graphic. This thing, because I enlarged it up, it's gone a wee bit fuzzy. So let's see if we can play with that. So this top image, what happens if I go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and obviously 19 is too much. But if I knock it away a bit, and I can check it by clicking the preview on and off, and looking at the image in here, you can come in here and you can click on it and let go, and that shows it kind of coming in and out of focus. But I find it a little easier to switch the preview on and off and to see how it's affecting this main image. Maybe I can push it a wee bit further. You can really see in here when you click on it. Now, what's it looking like here? Yeah, just softening a bit. You can see it really with the lights. So I'm going to OK that to try and tighten a bit. And then there's a few other things here. So with the top image, you know, what do I like and what don't I like with these lights? So for instance, if I get a paintbrush, let's change it back to a regular brush, and a left square bracket to reduce that size down a bit. Get black as a foreground color. Make sure I'm on the channel, and it's like how does that look with just the lines down the side? Command Z. How does it look the other way if I leave those kind of central lights and not the others? Actually, I think I like it more with these. Will take out that bottom light, top one. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of detail in here where you can start to work with it. If I get a brush that is a little more customized, got that's an interesting one. Let's try that one with the funny texture. So I can actually come in here and say, okay, black. And add a bit of texture. It's not going to come down onto this bottom part because the mask is just dealing with the top. So again, these fine graphic lines are going to tie in with the other image that had the running track on it. Maybe I'll come down to the bottom mask and try a little bit with the cars, just adding that element of texture in. There's a door here that I could probably lighten off a wee bit, but we'll leave it like that. One more thing that I could try here is what happens, maybe a little bit hard to see, but I'll enlarge up. If I go filter on that image, and I'm going to go to noise, add noise. So this is when it starts to look a little more photographic. It's like adding grain in. Obviously that's gone too far. It can be a little bit crude. You can see from photographic, letting the noise in. Gaussian is better than uniform. It's a little bit more random. And I might do that, just adding in a wee bit of texture. Okay, and that also means now if I find this other image, and in this case, what will I do? I might just I'll expand that a wee bit, and I could do it with a mask if I wanted, because this is just a single image, or I can pick the lasso tool and say, okay, 75, I'm going to make it really wide, like 120, and just run through here, not necessarily across the running track, because I like what's happening there. Command H, filter, let's go to the noise again, add noise. You can see the grain coming through there, quite a bit of it, and you'll see that when it gets here, because of that 120, kind of tapers off a wee bit. I could have even made it a bit more than that. So if I switch on the preview, you can see a little bit of texture coming through. I'll go okay. Again, this is just to try and tie the two images together. It's reduce that down a bit so we can have a look at them side by side. Let's move them a wee bit closer together. And again, just trying to get some kind of a tie-in. This hue and saturation one, if I'm not so keen on that, I can try other things like coming in here and saying, okay, this image here, I'll actually make a new layer above it. It's clipped, I suppose that doesn't really matter, but I'll put it above the hue and saturation, and I'm going to try getting the eyedropper. I've actually clicked on the other image to get the same kind of green, and I'll go Option Delete, and it puts that color right across the top. I've got a few things here. Color, I won't worry about the door because I can change that in a minute. I'm just seeing how the green is affected. It doesn't look all that great, so I might just try and brighten it up a bit. Option Delete, switch the eye on and off. It's affecting it a bit, but not much. So what happens if I duplicate it a couple of times? Same way that I did with the blue up above, trying to strengthen it. So let's say the eye's on. Switch all of them off. It enhances it a wee bit. Maybe I'll try one of them instead on colour. I'll mix through these and see if anything has a dramatic effect. Multiply does a bit. Actually, multiply is probably pretty good. Colour burns, pretty good. The lighter ones are going to go the wrong way. So darker, linear burn, colour burn. So darken doesn't have so much of an effect on these dark areas. If I go colour burn though, does add a little bit more colour through here. And again with this one, I can dilute the opacity down a bit, so it's getting a bit more of a graphic feel. And then this, I just hold down the Option key. When the Option key is held down, I can click and I can just keep dragging that up until I get it the way I like. I'm shift clicking on that just so you can see a bit of colour coming through. Do I want it normal or diluted slightly? I might just leave it normal at the moment. So let's have a look at the two of them compared again. That's pretty good. It would be nice, maybe the running track again. I could bring those lines over and drop them in here. But the two of them now are starting to look a little bit more like a set. And let's just check that by going to this one, image, and I'll duplicate it. And then I can go back to this one and I can go, okay, let's reverse it. That's what it was. And so we can now start to compare the two of them together. So that's the combo that I've kind of put together. And if I have a look here, you can see the difference between the images is a little more drastic.